are. So for anybody who's only listening to the audio version, I will put this video on the show notes page so they can go check out what this actually looks like if any of this is a little confusing just through audio. But here we go. Let's log in.
Okay, so it's designed to be really quick and simple because time is of the essence for teachers. And I wanted something to be like a quick daily pulse that we could do without feeling like, oh, I'm losing 10 minutes every day. So students log in and they have a username which teachers assign, and we say it's like first name, last name, or whatever combination, what other any other kind of username, school ID that they may have. And what we found is that teachers can give students passwords, but they also don't need to, so it depends. And the first thing students will see is this screen with 2 questions, and that's really what it is. It says, how are you feeling today? And there are a bunch of emojis. And so students can select up to any that they're feeling. We have different age ranges. So we have like elementary school versus middle school versus
Okay.
high school, so that the emotions are kind of developmentally appropriate. So for
I don't know.
example,
Emojis are pretty universal if you ask me, but
totally. Well, for example, we have restless for middle and high school, but like wiggly for
sure.
elementary school because we might identify as that.
I
So
love
this
that.
is our middle school version. And then, so we have the emojis. And then underneath it, we ask overall, how are you doing? And we have a scale of 1 through 10. And we created the scale because that is really what we use to like trip our alarms. So if a student identifies as a 3 or below, we flag them as of concern because we want to make sure that we kind of pay attention to them. And that information is shared with teachers via dashboard, but also via email. So teachers get an email every day with the students of concern, the class average out of 10, the most selected emotion, and then they also see the students who didn't check in, because in some ways that's data in itself that we want to make sure is available.
Right.
And then on the top right, I'm so bad at left and right. You'll notice we have a check on me button, and
Yeah.
that is schools can turn that on and off, but when it's on, students can select it and an email is automatically generated to their teacher and the school level emergency contact. So that could be like the counselor, the administrator, the social worker, kind of psychologist, whoever would be the right person within that school. And it's designed to give them a heads up that the student would like some support. And students, there's a drop down menu. So when you click it, you can see we're asking some context for what's going on. And the idea is that this gives the adults some additional context so they kind of know where to start the conversation.
Right.
And really, WellCheq's designed to facilitate conversations. It's not designed to give you all the information. It just helps point you where to start.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, and then we have student resources, but for the sake of time, I just want to show you the teacher version because I think in some ways that is our greatest strength. And also everyone should know that this is like fake dummy data from my parents, so not revealing any secret information. So I think the biggest thing is the different dashboards in addition to the email. So we have our students of concern page, which gives you the list of students who have identified as a 3 or below. And it's kind of the place you want to go first if you're really worried about individuals. We also have enabled teachers to select students for email. So if you're worried about Dave, you can select Dave and get his daily report every day.
Okay.
So we have our students of concern. We have the daily report, which just shows you how everybody responded in a given day. And what you can see is I'm toggling between different dates, so you can see different dates. You can sort by name. You see the well-being number, the emotions they selected. Underneath, you see the class average. And then this chart is my favorite chart. It's the students' emotions report. And what it does is it counts all of the times students within the class identified as a certain emotion. And so it's anonymous. So you just see this really pretty colorful bar graph. And what I love is that teachers have shown this to students and they talk about it as a class community. How are we doing? And also one thing I thought was so brilliant is one of our teachers showed this to students and was like, hey, you're not the only one feeling any of these things. So this is dummy data report, but you would see that other students are also feeling angry or lonely or sad, which can be kind of cathartic in itself, just knowing that. And then she would also remind them to check on their friends and check on someone who might be feeling sad, or just make sure you're looking after one another. And I think the subtle messaging in all of that is really important. And that's what so much of this is in communication with students, is subtle messaging about what we value and how we try to speak to one another and look after one another.
Yeah, and
And then
what's nice what's nice about what you have right there, those charts, is that they are, um, there's no names attached. What do you call that? Anonymous.
anonymous.
There it is. They
Yeah,
are anonymous, so you can just show this chart and say, hey, as a class, here's how we're doing, and nobody feels called out because they answered one
right.
thing or another.
Right. And because it doesn't mark one to one, because students can select more than one emotion, it's not like, you can't really map on to, oh, well, someone over there must have said angry, because a bunch of people could have said angry and frustrated or whatever it may
Right.
be. So, and the last two are longitudinal, and that really tracks changes over time. And that's important because what you learn is that some students are kind of our dandelions. They just kind of are always a 5 or a 6, and that's fine. And whereas some kids you'll really see are an 8 versus a 2. And okay, so what is the right kind of normal place for them?
Sure.
And so this has a lot of Deming data. So it's going to be a lot of zeros, but you'll be able to at least get a sense of how it looks. And we're doing some cool adjustments on this over time. So what we're doing is we're allowing teachers to sort by gender identity and also racial identity, because I
Mhm.
think it's really important to see, are students who are identifying as non-white, are they exhibiting more challenges or reporting lower well-being than others? And if so, then why is that? And what can we do to support them? So you can just see the class average over time. We've seen, when looking at the back end, we saw that, not surprisingly, student averages went down right before the holidays in December, which is something we inherently have
Sure.
observed and known as teachers, but to see it was really fascinating. And then the last report is individual students. So this has been really helpful for conferences. So if you're worried about a specific individual, you can see their longitudinal report and their emotions reports. Let's see. So they have their own emotional bar graph, and then they have their own report over time. And there's a table underneath that kind of shows you. And what I think has been really helpful for teachers with this is it's all self-identified. So when we're talking to parents, it's not that I observed that your student's feeling angry. This is how your student identified
Wow. Yeah.
themselves. And then how do we go from there? So, and that's it. There are definitely some features we're working on this summer, especially looking at like different subgroups to help schools use the information and think about programming. But it's designed to be pretty simple, because we want it to be something that can be used every day and provide actionable information.
Yeah, of course. And looking at this, it's incredibly intuitive. You've got the menu on the left side. You've got all the data right in your middle. You've got the classes across the top, so you can do the drop downs and look at different classes, different students. Everything about it is, like you said, it's simple. And that's part of the beautiful thing about it. To be honest, is that it's not this behemoth of a program. It does what you need it to do.
I think that's something that was really important to us while we were building. And we also, you can create subgroups. So if you are worried about your learning support students within a class, or students who are English language learners, you can kind of create a group and beeline to them. So you can just check on them. You can also share students. So if you are in a middle or high school setting, or even elementary school setting where students have multiple teachers, you can share them so that their, let's say, afternoon teachers can also see how they're doing.
Hmm.
And we give these different permissions to schools so that they can really find the cadence that works for them. So we don't automatically share student data, but if that's something schools want, we can enable them to do that. And that's really important to me, is that we find the balance between giving the information to people who need it and can support students with it, but also trying to maintain and protect privacy.
Yeah. And like you said, I mean, the fact that this is not that it's not a ton, right? So it is, in that sense, a little easier to start to implement, right? It's not this huge task. It's literally just the students do it probably first thing in the morning, or can they do it multiple times throughout the day, or
Yeah, great question. So right now they can do it once a day, and they can do it whenever. So they can do it first thing in the morning. In some cases, we're working with schools after lunch, which I think would be a really great
ooh,
idea too. And one thing I forgot to mention is when students complete their check-in, they press submit and then a quote pops up. And so for students who are performing better, we have like a whole random mix of different quotes that from people they know about working hard or inspiration or friendship and some of these other really wonderful topics. And then for students who are struggling, we offer more targeted intervention ideas or quotes that kind of support them and like, it's okay to have a bad day, or like, it's okay to not be okay. And have you thought about journaling today, or giving them tangible, actionable strategies that they can use? Because that's so important to me. As a teacher, I felt like sometimes people would suggest strategies, but I was like, what is a strategy? Like, what are you envisioning? Because I'm a very action oriented person,
Okay.
and I don't think always in the super abstract. I like concrete. And
Sure.
so my goal is to make sure WellCheq is created in a way that it feels actionable, tangible, and concrete. So a student says that they're angry, so you can say, well, why are you feeling angry? And kind of have this information that you can use immediately, if that makes sense.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So this is I'm so blown away by this. This just seems super. Like I said, it's super intuitive. It's really simple, and it's just going to be super effective for anybody who's interested in diving into it. So, if teachers are interested in checking this out, or having the conversation, I guess, with maybe their administrators about getting a school wide program going, what would be the best direction for them?
Yeah. So one thing to note, which also is really awesome, is it's free. But yes, and we have coded the data in such a way that it's de-identified. So we can't see personally identifiable information. So I can't see that you have a Michael in your class who is identifying as a boy and has said today that he feels like a 7. And so that's really important because privacy is really
Mhm.
important. And so we actually don't see that information. What we can see is groups. So we can see that 8 students in your class said that they were feeling angry today, and we can see that your class average is a 6 and 20 people responded. And we can see that student number 18, we have no idea who student 18 is, and we can't identify student 18, but we can see kind of their history.
So when you
So
say
that's,
we, is that the you guys as WellCheq as a team, or is that
yeah,
we as the
no,
teachers?
that's we
Yeah,
as a team. Teachers can see everything. So teachers can see like what I had just shown
yeah,
you, so they could see names and all of that information so they can use it.
yeah. I thought so.
If
I
they're
just wanted to
interested,
clarify.
yeah, no, that's a great question. So if people are interested in using it, they should check us out on Twitter, but also email me. They can also message us on Twitter. My email is jodi@wellcheck.com. And it's really easy. I sometimes onboard people via email or have a conversation, and I just kind of show them how it works and talk about ways that they can use it and different strategies for supporting students and other teachers with it. We're also hoping to build out the teacher version this fall, which is exciting. So teachers can kind of do their own check in because their well
Hmm.
being has been compromised during the pandemic, but also it was before the pandemic. So I think that they should just get in touch, even if they just have questions, because we love working with partners and we love hearing feedback. We've gotten so many great ideas based on the feedback we've gotten that we're able to implement. And there's nothing more that I love than being able to hear from our teacher partners about how can we make it better for you? Because that's why it
Right.
exists, to really be the best tool for teachers and students and administrators.
Yeah, to get that feedback and then to immediately go and say, okay, well, here's the feedback, here's what we're correcting, or here's what we're changing to make it better, and then it's perpetuating. So, but I guess the important thing is that this isn't something that your administrator needs to set up, right? This is something that you as an individual teacher can go to wellcheck.com, fill out the contact form, or just send you an email directly, and it can be a single class, right? It doesn't have to be the whole school.
Yeah, we've seen it in a bunch of different kind of forms. So we've seen it in single classes, multiple classes in a school, a grade level. We're working with entire schools this year. And so I think one thing that's really important to me is that it's a net positive for everybody. So if there are teachers who don't have this bandwidth or who are not ready for something like this, then our approach is like focus on people who are and let it grow organically in a way that like works for that school. Because as a teacher, I know how overwhelmed people can feel and how overburdened they are already. And so I really don't want to add something else to their plate. I want this to be something that really helps them. And so that's kind of how I talk to new schools and teachers about it, because I really want it to be a net positive.